Got it. Welcome, please, to the collision. He's Etan Thomas, playing 11 years in the NBA, and now tearing things up on commentary for your pleasure and, frankly, for your nutrition, given this sports landscape. I mean, actually hearing from somebody who has something to say. And, of course, I can't say here's Etan Thomas without also saying here's Chuck Modiano, one of the sharpest knives in the sports politics box. An interesting time for sports media, but we will keep it real no matter what, because the issues aren't stopping. Just because the media doesn't quite understand the importance of the issues, I can tell you something, the players certainly do. And so we got a heck of a show. We wanted to come on. This is almost emergency style. Actually, no, almost. This is emergency style because we wanted to discuss it. What we're talking about is something that occurred at the WNBA All-Star Game on Saturday night. Now, if folks missed it, the players came out onto the court for warm-ups, not wearing the typical WNBA warm-ups, but wearing shirts that said, "Pay us what you owe us." And it wasn't just that took place. It wasn't just seeing great players like from Nafisa Collier to Caitlin Clark wearing these shirts. What made it special was the fans themselves started chanting by the thousands, "Pay the players." They did it while the WNBA commissioner, I believe her name is Kathy Engelbert, was trying to speak to the crowd about how great everything was. And before I open it up and ask Etan about things, I just want to say one thing about the issue that I think is, just so we're all talking about the same thing. Nobody in the WNBA, not one player, is saying, why aren't we paid as much as LeBron James? Why aren't we paid as much as Jaylen Brown? Where's our $60 million a year contract? Nobody is saying that. All these, the right wing, the anti-women's basketball, sexism, you're hearing so many distortions of why they wore those shirts. I'll just say it very simply. Typical men's pro sports league, within a couple of points, it's roughly 50% revenue for the players, 50% for ownership, and you figure out salary based on the 50% that the players get. That's how it works. And it's a huge deal if it goes to like 51 or 49 because it's a lot of money. WNBA, 9.3% of the revenue. And when you factor in the growth of the league, the television contracts that the league just secured, 9.3% is frankly beyond disrespectful. So support them wearing the shirts. Love the fans chanting. It's already generated a backlash because people generally in the sports media sphere suck. But first, I want to throw it to Etan. Please, Etan, your thoughts when you saw the shirts, your thoughts of what it all means, and let's get moving. Sorry for the long intro, but I really wanted to establish some facts before we were just like, WNBA wants to get paid, and just have it be like that. So please.
I mean, it's so frustrating to see those narratives go around social media, the next day. And it's so completely fabricated. Like you said, nobody in the WNBA is saying, pay us the same amount that you pay LeBron or Steph Curry, or, nobody is saying that. It's a percentage thing. And it's I like the fact that the WNBA all did it together. That's something that is really difficult to do. And they've consistently been the model for sports protest of how to be able to do things together. And it's just really amazing to see. I was part of the executive committee and everybody went together. That's the only way I can say it, and they're able to splinter guys off and, everything like that. But they all stuck together. And I think it's great. But it is really important for the media to be able to give the right narrative as to what exactly they're asking for. And that's why I'm glad that you said it right in the beginning, that it's a percentage difference. They get 9% of the pie. That is not fair. That is, they should not have. I mean, when we were in a lockout, we were at 52%. That's where we were. They're at 9%. So everybody just have to understand it's a percentage thing, not specifically a numbers thing. But Chuck, please weigh in.
I mean, just what you said. If the information's right there, it is a percentage thing. Nobody is saying, as you said, that I want to make as much as LeBron James. So every single argument you'll find is a fabrication. It's either a fabrication or is a double standard. So it's either they're fabricating numbers or they're using a double standard that they've never used before for male sports that I've heard of. So I'm hearing a lot beyond that. I'm hearing, oh, well, WNBA didn't turn a profit for so many years. They should pay for that. Since when should a worker pay for a business that didn't turn a profit? We're going to start with the WNBA. Not only that, I would argue now that the NBA has 40% women viewers, that it was in the interest of the NBA to have a WNBA to increase their women viewership over time. They're not a charity. Not only that, I would argue, I haven't heard these same people say, well, you know, the minor leagues cost $1 billion to be subsidized by major leagues. So what are we going to do about this? We got to get rid of the minor leagues. No, we understand that the minor leagues have value in developing players for the major leagues. So they subsidize it. And these same people, the last 20 years, I haven't heard take up free market capitalism with the NCAA when people like yourself, Etan, were getting paid $0 an hour, getting your wages stolen. And these weren't the people who were saying, we got to make sure Etan gets his money that he's producing and his revenue that he's generating. They weren't saying that. Have you got a check, Etan?
No check.
No, so I'm seeing a lot of hypocrisy and I'm seeing a lot of misogyny disguised as dedication to free market capitalism.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of the thing is that free market capitalism and what we're talking about here. How do you separate them? I mean, it's baked into the cake, not just sexism, but, you know, disrespecting the value of women in sports. Like, how long did it take the women's national soccer team to win equal pay? How many lawsuits, how many demonstrations? And this was just with piling up World Cup wins. This was with them exploding the sport's popularity, not just here, but internationally, where more countries have set up women's soccer programs where they didn't exist before. Soccer-mad countries that did not have women's soccer pipelines started them because not just of the greatness of the U.S. team, but because of the way the women themselves inspired young girls in other countries to want to play. The demand became so intense and the prestige of wanting to win these World Cups, given the incredible audiences, became enough that a lot of countries finally moved. And, you know, the WNBA, one of the things that bothers me a great deal is, you know, they just signed this television deal that's going to raise their revenue by something like $80 million a year. They lost, they're saying, $40 million last year. So, okay, well, now they're going to make this money. And shouldn't that then be considered? Clearly, it's not being considered because ownership is saying, no, we need to reinvest it back into the product. And it's like, reinvest it back into the product. Yeah, you do that by making players want to stay here year round and not have to go to Eastern Europe to play in the off season. So they can actually do rest and training and development and clinics with young girls around the country. So it's like, they're not, all they're really doing is reinvesting in their own pocketbooks. And one last point about all of this that I feel just like pretty intense about point. Actually, you know what? I've been going on too long.
No, go ahead, make your point.
Go with it.
It just bothers me so much when people talk about the NBA is subsidizing the WNBA, because let's keep it real for a second. Public dollars are financing the NBA. So, all right, let's talk about that. Clearly, there is an appetite among a very good percentage of the public to say it is worth us to spend our tax dollars to build these arenas. I disagree with it. I've argued the economics of it for 20 years about why it's wrong. People have decided, hey, it's more important to have a team maybe in the middle of the city to identify us. The psychological effect, they've decided to value that and put taxes towards that. There's a lot of ins and outs about that, but let's just say that for a second. It doesn't change the fact that the NBA is being subsidized. And so if the NBA is using its subsidization to invest in the WNBA, which is now with the new TV contract actually going to show a profit, the NBA should be praised for a smart investment decision, for saying we see growth in women's basketball. And maybe it took time, but we are being proven right. But even as they are being proven right in real time, the mockery of this league, as was just seen at the ESPY Awards, just seems undefeated. And that's the part that I think should hang over this entire discussion.
I think it's going to be interesting to see where these collective bargaining agreements go from here. They definitely put the pressure on them, and they're winning a lot of the fans over. I mean, being able to see the entire crowd join in with, pay the players, that's amazing. So if you go back to the 2011 lockout, where I was, on the executive board, it was the exact opposite. The NBA did a fantastic job of controlling the narrative. It was the greedy NBA players, and all we want to do is cut a fair deal, but they just want all of this, they want more and more and more, and us poor owners, we're losing money, and we're doing this, and they did a great job of parroting that narrative. I remember when I did an article for ESPN, and it was called like Inside the Minds of the NBA or something like that. And so I presented it as at them being the greedy ones and them wanting to squash the players and them wanting to. And David Stern was so upset with me. He was pissed. Like Billy Hunter was telling me how he was just cussing and sweating and spitting and carrying on because they have always controlled the narrative. Now, they had 1,000 articles, ESPN, SportsCenter, everything on their side. It's the greedy players, it's everything like that. My little one article that made it on ESPN, and they were so upset with it because of how they wanted to keep the narrative geared towards them, even if it was a false narrative. There's a lot of different things that they didn't factor into the split that was going to be more on their side, and they didn't explain all that to the public. They just said, the players just want more. But right now, the WNBA has the narrative on their side. So, besides the men who say on social media or whatever, they say, they owe it. Aside from them, I'm talking about like the mainstream media, the way that they showed them all collectively standing there, wearing their shirts together, the solidarity. They don't make as much money, and they want to be able to have money. That narrative is on their side. So that's some good momentum for them. They should keep on going with this, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here.
I want to hear more about Dave Stern blowing a gasket. Really, you have any more anecdotes there, Don?
Oh, I do, but I didn't want to take up all the time. So let me tell you this. And this is one of the things that I posted. The WNBA posted a picture of themselves. There was probably about maybe 15 of them going up the elevator, and they said like we're heading to the collective bargaining meeting or something like that. So I posted it, and in the caption I said, make sure you guys stick together. Don't do the way that we did in the 2011 lockout, where one person, David Stern promised one person, and the person is Derek Fisher. People have heard me say this before, but promised one person riches, glory, favors, positions that he's not qualified for or hasn't earned yet. If they just sway the players one way, if we just take them towards and this is all, factual. This isn't like hearsay. I know that he admitted to doing this. David Stern admitted to doing this. And I heard that with my own ears. I confronted Derek Fisher one time before he admitted, and he didn't even look me in the eye. Like we had a big collective bargain of the executive committee meeting, and I'm like, this is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing it from my agent, or tell him. that you are playing both sides, that David Stern is promising you this and this. No, I would never do anything like that. And meanwhile, not looking me in the eye. So I'm cautioning the WNBA because this is a playbook that I found out that they use. So you're going back to different lockouts. They use that. Try to pick one player out. Hey, we're going to give you a job. We're going to do this for you. We're going to do this for you. Just get the players to do this. They're going to do that. And women are different. You know what I mean? Like the type of solidarity that they've shown has really been amazing. Going back to even before when they wore the Black Lives Matter shirts and they wore everything like that. And then and this is such a great story where the president said, if anybody does that again, you will be suspended. You know what I mean? Nobody wear the shirt again during the warm-ups. And then they got on like a conference call and they all wore the shirts, like the whole entire league. And they were like, you can't suspend all of us or you'll have no league. That type of solidarity is something that we don't see in any other sports. Like I really want them to continue that solidarity and to stay together. That's my because the men's side, we weren't able to stay together. We just weren't. One of us got bought off and then it just crumbled from there. So as long as they stay together, they keep pushing. And I mean, 9%, yeah, they should be able to make some leeway on that.
I mean, you need that solidarity. And to your point, Etan, when you go back to the 2020 George Floyd uprising, there was only one team to this day that is a professional team among sports that kneeled as a full team. And that's the Indiana Fever. And behind that story is the legendary Tama Catchings, who is known for her incredible ball, but is not really known for her activism. And I believe her activism or quiet activism, she laid it out. We're doing this as a team. You have white players on the team kneeling together, the whole team. And we haven't seen that in the NFL. We haven't seen that in the NBA, certainly not on Major League Baseball. And I think to this day that stands out, but it speaks to the solidarity you're talking about and the solidarity we saw last night and the solidarity that not only do we need in basketball, but then we need outside of basketball, that everything's going on. So I'll finish with this anecdote in that there was a woman. You know what? I'm going to mess up the anecdote because I don't know her name. But what they did is they tried to take all of these protesters at Princeton and give them all charges. But then they tried to cut a deal. If you just let us charge the one person, then we're going to be fine. And you guys will all get off. And the other 12 people said, no, we're in this together. We're not taking that deal. And they ended up winning, and the charges were dropped on all 13 people. They weren't going to sell out the one person. And that's the solidarity we need on the court and off the court.
Well, let me just say this real quick. When I interviewed Swin Cash in my book, We Matter, Athletes and Activism, and was talking to them about the solidarity that they showed during that same time period that you're talking about. And one of the things that happened was when the president said that they were going to suspend anybody that wore a shirt or anything like that, the vets said, hey, to the rookies and to the young players, hey, if you get fined, I'll take care of your fine. Don't worry about the fine. We're all going to stick together. And that's just amazing to see because it has the solidarity and they all stuck together. And then what happened? The WNBA capitulated to them and they said, oh, okay, well, you can wear the shirts and we're proud of our players being able to use their platforms and their voices to be able to stand behind the cause all together. They just completely shifted their tune because they can't find everybody. They can't suspend everybody or they'll have no league. And I mean, I just think it's amazing how the WNBA does. I had much respect to all of them because and especially at that time, some of the people who were protesting that were wearing the Black Lives Matter shirts, that were taking a knee, like you said, with Indiana, that were remember when they said we're only going to answer 2 or 3 questions after the game, dealing with the game, and then we want to talk about Breonna Taylor. Then we want to talk about, Eric Garner and all the things that are happening. That's our platform. And they kept doing it. Now, they had people on their teams that weren't from here. So they didn't really know the politics of the United States. They didn't know the history of the police because they just played here and then they went back to their countries. But they stood together with their sister in like a sisterhood. And they said, hey, if my sister is hurting about this, I'm going to learn about it, and then I'm going to stand in solidarity with them, no matter what. And that's what they did. I just think that's just amazing. Like they have to be the model for how you stick together, and you don't let them pick one out, and you how you're stronger. You know what I mean? As an entire unit than as one person by themselves, like a Kaepernick by themselves, or Craig Hodges by himself, or Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf by himself. You know, there's been a history of that in the NBA of people standing out and it's being on an island by themselves. And the WNBA is different.
Well, the other thing that's different is you mentioned about women's. I think we should narrow in a little bit that women's sports is different. And it's not different in the way the Barstool people say it's different. Oh, not as entertaining. Oh, the NBA subsidizes them. Oh, Caitlin Clark. Why aren't they just focusing all of their advertising energy on Caitlin Clark? She's amazing.
Is that Portnoy's voice you're doing?
Yes, Portnoy.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's how they sound.
It's just there's
they all sound like that, by the way.
No, man, I'm not doing anybody. There is such a fog of stupidity over sports media these days that to boil it down to Pat McAfee or Stephen A. Smith, honestly, that's like blaming a world famous arsonist in Los Angeles for some dude setting a fire in Tacoma, Washington. Yeah, maybe they took that inspiration from seeing the LA arsonist, but he's not the one lighting that match.
Right.
Take some accountability for your stupidity. And one of the big stupid things by men, and we got to just call it out that these are men who don't know women's sports, is they can't explain. They can laugh, ha, 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 you lost money, you don't deserve money, you're women's sports, you're not as good, no one cares. That the big no one cares line is a huge one for them. They think it's hilarious to say no one cares. And yet I heard thousands of people chant pay the players. So that's and find me another sport, another men's sport where you would see thousands of fans chant pay the players. You don't see it. And it's not because male players get their fair share. It's because there is a collective up with one, up with all of us attitude in women's sports. I wish there was a metaphor that was the reverse of crabs in a barrel, but they're like the opposite of crabs in a barrel. They're crabs who get on each other's shells so they can get to the top of the barrel, get out of the barrel, and then they leave no crab behind. Keep reaching down with those claws and pulling them over the top.
That was good. That was good, Dave.
That's what women's sports has always been. Name the sport, that's what it's been. And soccer, every single women's sport, they adopt that mentality. It's not to say there aren't villains. It's not to say there aren't rivalries, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, the whistle's been blown, shove comes to push, we're in this together. And I say all this because I was reading a bunch of stuff before the show. And one of the big WNBA criticisms by a more serious person, not just some misogynist, cracking jokes at their expense, but like a serious person says, you have to fault the WNBA for leaving a lot of money on the table by not building entire marketing campaigns around Caitlin Clark and letting her comet light the way for everybody else. And I read this and I'm like, this is someone who's never watched women's sports because that really, I'll just throw another metaphor at this. Imagine like you're going out there to like 100-meter dash, right? And you have all these incredible sprinters and you start yelling that your favorite at the 100-meter dash, who could absolutely win the 100-meter dash, you say she should get a car because she's the person who everybody's here to see anyway. So let's let her win the 100-meter dash in a car so we can all celebrate that she wins. And for WNBA fans, they're like, A, she might be able to win this without a car. So isn't that what sports is all about? And B, we're honestly not about the spectacle of seeing that individual wear a crown at the end of the race. We're about the spectacle of seeing if the sixth place person manages to get their way up to third, because that in many ways is a bigger accomplishment than being a favorite and winning the race. That's the mentality of the women's sports fan. And that's what a lot of these haters don't understand.
No, 100% correct. Well, I'm definitely rooting for them And, I'm glad we jumped on here to discuss this because there's going to be a lot of male voices bashing the WNBA, here in the coming week. Let's be honest with you. We're going to look at the different sports channels, and they're going to give all the reasons why the WNBA players should just be thankful and just be grateful for their 9%, because they don't deserve any percent. And they don't, that you're gonna hear it. I'm telling you, mark my word, you're gonna hear it Monday morning, driving into work. You turn on sports radio, you're gonna hear those narratives over and over. Like, what do they think they deserve? Like the NBA is subsidizing them. They don't deserve anything. You're gonna hear that over and over again. So it's great that we're able to give some real substance to this discussion and to this topic for those that don't know a lot of the details. So much respect to y'all for doing it.
And I think what you just mentioned, that's the most bothersome part. You know what? You should just be happy you're getting anything. You're happy you're getting anything. And to the male fans, we have to point that out. This is the male group, the Barstool group, the Outkick group, those who ignored the WNBA till 2024 and then came in after mocking the WNBA for a couple of decades and say, we've arrived. So we're important now. Now it matters because we're here. And the idea, which was touched upon, that not only should the other players be happy and happy with whatever they get, but should make it easier for, say, Caitlin Clark to do well because it helps the sport, is absurd, ridiculous, and would never be asked in any other arena. When Jordan was lifting up the NBA, the Pistons were making sure he had to earn everything. 2, 3, 4 Pistons on top of him. You see pictures. They beat the crap at him. Not the stuff they're talking about Caitlin. That's just like that's nothing. That's just regular basketball. But what the Pistons were doing. But now, all of a sudden, we should make it easier for a competitor to do well. That's absurd.
Would never fly in any male sports league for one single second. You can be Adam Morrison or a player or, Michael Olowokandi. I hate to pick on him because he had some nice moments in his career. But it's just like, you can be the number one pick. Fine. If you can't hang, no one's going to say, oh, wow, a lot of people want to know how Olowokandi is going to do. Let's give him some free dunks and wow the crowd. No, it's next one to the X one, to quote Gangstar, although in a much different context. That's what sports are supposed to be about, and it's about finding your place and then figuring out how to improve. Quick story, Tom. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he was so pissed about his son's AAU team because he heard the kids were bragging about they've been winning all their games like 50-12 was a recent game.
Okay.
He got really mad at his son. He said, I'd rather you lose by 8 than win by 40. How did this make you better? How? And what's the point? Because by trying to get better, you have to work hard. And by working hard, you get better. So if you're constantly playing in a context where you don't have to work hard, you will never improve. And the fact that they want that for the WNBA just shows that they have such little respect for women's athletes and the potential of women athletes to wow us and thrill us like all athletes. And it's so interesting to me that they've drawn this line around basketball as this proof that women's team sports can't get an audience. And now they're finally getting an audience. So the new argument is just, they're messing it up with Kate. It's all Caitlin Clark. They're messing it up with her, and they'll stink again soon. So, we'll see some history on that one. Yeah. But, and also, that's a throwaway line. I know we have to wrap up. I mean, how can we possibly separate the open contempt for the WNBA at ESPN on ESPN with a damn administration that just fired the woman who I believe heads the Naval Academy, for example. It's if you're a woman who's made your way up in the ranks, they're firing you on general principle. in this government. And, and so the argument is just, well, they must be there for some sort of affirmative action reason. Otherwise, a woman wouldn't be there in the first place. And believe me, that attitude, and we never talk about the mediocrity of white men, but that's a separate conversation. The attitude of that drifts into this cultural sphere of ESPN. And frankly, they should be utterly ashamed of themselves for, instead of standing up against it, egging it on because they think that's the thing that we do now.
Yeah, unfortunately it is. I mean, and what you're talking about as far as that mentality, I saw this thing where Trump actually had the audacity to challenge Jasmine Crockett to an IQ test or something like that. I was like, are you serious, man? Like, you want to challenge her to, like, so you think that you're smarter than her? That's what you think? You think that you're more intelligent, that you're more learner, that you know more facts about anything? I mean, we saw during the debates, and I don't want to just drift all the way to politics, but we saw during the debates with him and Kamala Harris, it wasn't even close. No. Like, I mean, you could go back to the debates with Hillary. No matter what you feel about Hillary, it wasn't even close over who was more intelligent, who was more learned, who was more, knew the facts or knew that he looked like somebody who didn't study for a test but is trying to speak on the facts and tell the story of a book report that he didn't read. You know what I mean? That's what Trump looked like, but people are okay with that. When I say people, you're talking about mainstream America, that certain demographic are okay with that. And it does spill over to this, because it does spill over to the fact that many of that Barstool crowd, that MAGA male crowd, they do not feel that women deserve anything. So you're going whether it's reproductive rights, whether it's compensation if you're playing a sport, whether it's the equal pay, whether it's, you could go down the list. They don't believe they deserve anything. So there really is a very strong tie-in to the way that they react to the WNBA players saying to pay us what you owe us, because they don't believe you owe it, you deserve anything in the first place.
And it's one and the same. Getting 9% and wanting to get more than 9% of the revenue has to be the least controversial position imaginable, one that we could all be unified on. And we're not. So, I mean, it boils down to that crowd. We're talking about a white male demographic that's entered the chat. And, when you look at businesses, it's many years for many businesses before they reach their first year of profitability. Uber did not reach their first year of profitability till 2023, but that didn't stop the CEO from making $38 million in 2021. They just want to change the rules for the WNBA. So when I hear you trying to change the rules for the first time after decades of arguments for the WNBA, I got to believe sexism is at play. Misogyny is at play. Bigotry is at play. Something else is going on here because the numbers don't add up.
Yeah, very well put. And, and let's also be real about this. Like, we're living in a time where there's a section of MAGA waking up to the fact that their God, who was going to lead them to uncover the cabal, the secret cabal of pedophiles who are secretly running our society. It's like, guess what? Not that secret. And your dude is right in the middle of it.
Yep.
And we've known this for years. There seems to be a consciousness breaking about it. So like this morning, for example, he's like, whatever happened to the name of the Washington Commanders and the Cleveland team? Like, he wants to bring back anything that's racist, not just because he's a racist, but because he's trying to change the discussion at 100 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Because, his secret sauce is not that he has a base, it's that he has a base that's extremely comfortable with violence. And that creates a Stockholm effect, I think, on a portion of the country as a whole. Like, shit, rather than seeing blood in the streets, I'll just keep my head down. And the reality is that his violent hordes are now being like, well, damn, do we deserve a president who won't want to have sex with my children? As a bare, low bar?
But
He
but it's
deserved
so
even that.
it's so crazy, Dave. And I know we got to wrap up. But I just say this: it's so crazy that that's the bar. So you have a lot of MAGA now upset about the Epstein files, and wait, you promised us this, and this is not happening, and you told us this, and this is not fair, and you're like everybody, all of them are jumping on this bandwagon of being upset right now, right? And yes, they have a reason to be upset, but you was okay with all of this. You was okay with the racism, with the sexism, with the little kids in the cages, with the ICE. You was all of this. You was okay with reproductive rights. Just go down the list of everything. But this is the line. This is the line for y'all. This one. So all of this is okay, but this one, I'm like, I guess. But he has a long list of things that you should be outraged about. Yes, you should be outraged about this as well. But the fact that you was okay with all of this, it kind of makes it a little different for me to hear them burning their hats and their little MAGA hats and upset and on social media and I didn't vote for this and all that. But you voted for all of this? I don't know. No, you're muted. You're muted, Dave.
You're muted, Dave.
I'll just say that the line that I'm fine with torturing brown children, but I'm not fine with the president raping blonde children.
Yeah,
it is frankly just such a statement about the sickness of this country. I'm proud to be speaking with two folks like y'all, working with somebody like Marlon, who is frankly not willing to just say, all right, I may be disgusted by what's going on, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut about it. It's like, if you got a larynx, say something, because this ain't right.
Right.
Well, thanks you both, man. Etan, first of all, thank you for bringing us together for this. This is an important topic. Thank you, Chuck, for sitting in the Dr. Evil Godfather chair. I'm surprised you're not like petting a kitten in your lap or something.
It's lower than you can see.
I like the background. It's tough.
No, it's tough. It's good. But thank you, Marlon, for everybody out there listening. Please stay frosty. We are The Collision. We are out of here. Peace.